It is said that in a universe ruled by unstoppable alien beings, capable of harnessing incredibly advanced technology and manipulating black holes at will, entire galaxies can be obliterated in an instant. Amid this chaos, an orphan child embarks on a dangerous journey to find his mother. The story becomes even more intriguing when a group of armed individuals enters a building and begins scanning the surrounding area. One of them notices movement. Immediately, they all raise their guns, switching on their flashlights. Their beams reveal a small child covered in countless scars. He tries desperately to run, but they quickly capture him with a net. Sometime later, the child opens his eyes to find himself lying on a bed. Bright sunlight floods the room, nearly blinding him. The place is a children's shelter. As he slowly attempts to sit up, everything feels unfamiliar. The smooth floor, the clean clothes, and the meals that arrive on schedule. The child spends most of his time on a hill, avoiding others. One day, a group of children finds him alone and tries to invite him to play. Instead, he crouches down like a wild animal, screaming loudly and scaring them away. Just then, a butterfly flutters near his head, and he becomes captivated, playing with it. A red-haired woman observes him through a window. She turns to a nearby girl and asks if the boy is unable to speak. The girl shakes her head, explaining that he simply hasn't learned how yet. She adds that the rescue team suspects he was raised by animals. When she jokingly calls him Mowgli, the other girl looks puzzled. The red-haired woman laughs, remarking that young people today might not recognize the reference. And that's understandable. She explains that it's from a story that existed before the boy arrived. Suddenly, a bell rings from the roof of a house, and all the children gather around a young girl. The boy, known as Mori, watches curiously as she begins distributing letters to the children. Suddenly, he hears a voice. A little red-haired girl explains to him that it's a letter sent by a sponsor, someone who sometimes sends gifts. She asks if he has a sponsor, but he doesn't respond. Undeterred, she grabs his hand and drags him along. Later, they bury him in the soil as they argue about whether adults are good or bad. Half are kind and half are not. While they eat together, the girl talks about how one child received a massive toy from a sponsor and wouldn't stop bragging about it. She mentions that Lily's sponsor even bought her clothes. As they study, she tells him that Joe actually spoke with his sponsor once, which he finds disgusting. After a moment, she declares that she doesn't need a sponsor because her mom promised to come back for her. That night, as they hide under a table, she confides in him. She says that after she sleeps for just 100 nights, her mom will return, and 100 nights will pass in the blink of an eye. Then, her voice softens. She hopes her mom comes soon. As he listens to her hopes and fears, he gazes at the night sky. The stars seem to blink rapidly, as if time is slipping away. One day, someone shows him an alien toy, claiming it came from the farthest reaches of space. A teacher gathers the children and tells them how they all became friends. However, a bespectacled boy interrupts, saying that's not true. Another child asks why the teacher would lie. The boy smirks, explaining that adults say things like that because they think kids are too young to understand the truth. To prove his point, he pulls out a large book and places it in front of them. Curious, another child asks where he got it. He admits that he took it from the principal's office. Flipping to the pages, he begins reading aloud, revealing that long ago, aliens arrived on Earth. Humans fought back using a super powerful weapon called HAK, but the aliens ate it. In the end, the humans had no choice but to surrender. One of the children frowns and asks why the aliens would eat a weapon. The kid with glasses shrugs and says simply, "They were just hungry." The bell in the tower rings once more, and all the kids gather around a young girl who is distributing letters. She calls out Maury's name and hands him a letter that has just arrived for him. As he holds the letter in his hands, he examines it closely. The young girl tells him that he has a sponsor now and asks if he isn't happy. Suddenly, the clang of a bucket hitting the ground catches his attention. Maury turns to look and notices a little red-haired girl standing there, her eyes welling with tears. After that, she sits crying under a table. When Maury approaches, she tells him to go away. So he starts pacing around the room. Suddenly, she hears a cracking sound and turns to see what it is. A broken cookie lies on the floor, and Mori stands nearby, looking nervous. She asks if these were the only things he treasured, then sadly picks up the cookie, hiding her face. She admitted that, in reality, 100 nights had already passed, but her mom still thought she couldn't count to 100. Tears streamed down her face as she murmured that she was all alone now. Suddenly, Mai leaned against her back. Confused, she turned around but soon broke into a quiet smile. She pulled out the cookie and asked if she could really eat it, making Mai uneasy. Then, she waved the cookie in the air in front of the drooling Mai and burst into laughter. Playing under the table, that was when she realized he was illiterate. Taking the letter from him, she noticed that it only said, "Hello there." Confused, she turned it upside down, checking for more. Just then, Mai noticed something falling. It was a stunning, radiant blue crystallized flower. He was astonished to see such a thing. Later that night, he held the same flower in his hands while the other children around him slept. Bringing it close to his nose, he inhaled its scent, mesmerized by its fragrance. Soon after, he drifted into a peaceful sleep. The tower bell rang once more, and a girl excitedly called out to Mai, showing him a new letter. Meanwhile, the red-haired woman handed him several gifts, commenting on how lucky Mori was. When his friends arrived, they were astonished to find Mai seated amidst a towering pile of presents. The red-haired girl started reading his letter, but it was written in basic words and still had untidy handwriting. Meanwhile, his other friends eagerly inspected his gifts. Among them was a talking doll and a set of colored crayons. They wondered who this person was and why they were being so generous. Perhaps they were incredibly wealthy, or maybe they had some hidden motive. The vibrant crayons gleamed brightly, drawing Mori's attention even more. Just as he was about to eat one, they quickly stopped him. When the red-haired girl showed him how to use it, realization hit him like a lightning bolt. And just like that, time went by. The weather was warm, so the children decided to help with the laundry. They eagerly rolled up their pants and began washing clothes with their tiny feet, some even turning it into a playful game. Perplexed, the red-haired girl wondered what was so fascinating about it. As Mai stepped on the clothes, little colorful bubbles formed, making him even more excited, until he suddenly slipped and tumbled into the bucket. Someone called out to the red-haired girl, just as she warned Mori not to step too hard. Before she could react, she heard her name being called. Turning around in confusion, she saw a woman rushing toward her, calling out, "Rat-Dinah!" Overcome with joy, she dashed forward, accidentally toppling the bucket in the process. As she reached the woman, she threw her arms around her, crying out, "Mom!" As Rat-Dinah embraced her mother in front of the other orphan children, Mori stood there, completely stunned, watching the scene unfold before him. The next day, Rina's eyes were swollen from crying. She told Mori to take care and cautioned him not to eat too fast, or he'd end up with indigestion. Then, she handed him her shoes and a small bag, gently telling him not to walk around barefoot anymore. Suddenly, she began crying again, looking even more endearing, and quickly wrapped her arms around him. Through her tears, she told him he absolutely had to be happy. Mori smiled and held her just as tightly in return. After some time had passed, Regina stood with her mother, bidding farewell to the other orphan kids. Among them, Mori silently watched everything unfold. Then, without a word, he returned to his usual spot on the hill. Even though the absence of friend left a big hole in his heart, he didn't feel lonely because the letters and gifts someone had sent were still by his side. The cloak was as soft and comforting as warm sunlight. The colorful crayons and talking doll brought him so much joy, and the kind letters carried the gentle scent of fragrant wildflowers. As Mai breathed in the delicate scent of the flowers in the letter, memories began to surface. He recalled the time when his friends eagerly speculated about the sender's identity. In that moment, the image of Regina's joyful face filled his mind. Then Mori pondered, could this person be his mother? Mai gathered his belongings and placed them in the bag his friend had given him. He glanced back one last time and bid farewell to the orphanage in the distance. As he took his first steps, he noticed a railway ahead. Following the tracks, he set off on an unknown path to find his mother. A herd of cows was resting nearby when one wandered over to a pile of dried grass. It licked Mai with its long tongue, waking him up. He wiped his hair with his tiny hands. He was on a train, staring out of the door, unaware that the train he had boarded without hesitation was already carrying him on a long journey to reunite with his mother. Mori stepped on the ground, bidding farewell to the halted train. He gazed ahead for a while before venturing alone into the vast desert. There was nothing but endless sand and a few scattered rocks. Trembling from a distant rumble, puzzled, Mori turned around. In the far distance, a cloud of dust rose as figures approached. They were humanoid aliens speeding toward him on bikes, armed with guns. A wave of fear washed over him as he tried to flee, but they swiftly surrounded him from all sides. From a cliff above, a figure with red skin, white hair, and a black jacket watched as the aliens encircled Mori. The aliens questioned whether he was truly human. Noting the way Mori had crouched like an animal, they debated whether this was really a human and why it was so small. One of them wondered if they could still sell it, which made Mori even more uneasy. Another alien suggested taking a small bite. As he moved closer to Mori, he remarked that it was so small nobody would even notice. One leg wouldn't make a difference. Meanwhile, someone was approaching from behind. Suddenly, another alien slammed the first one to the ground, demanding to know who had given him permission to touch it as he pleased. The alien quickly apologized, addressing him as boss. The boss glanced at Mori and scoffed, saying something this size wouldn't even reach the liver. But then he hesitated, as if realizing something. Suddenly, one of the aliens' heads burst into pieces. They all froze in fear, realizing it was a bullet. Someone was approaching from the distance. An alien with multiple eyes and two horns rode toward them on a sleek, intimidating-looking bike equipped with two machine guns. The boss called him Ryder and directed his goons not to panic, assuring them it was just one opponent. They opened fire on him, but Ryder accelerated his bike, effortlessly dodging every shot. The alien boss grew angrier and charged forward, preparing his right hand to strike. Ryder pushed his speed to the limit, and a massive explosion erupted. As the dust settled, there was nothing under the alien boss's hand, leaving him stunned. Ryder burst from the dust above the boss's head, his gun charging with green energy. He fired a powerful plasma beam, causing the ground to crack into pieces. Mori shielded his eyes from the dust as Ryder slid his bike to a sharp stop. To his left, a colossal crater scarred the ground. He got into an argument with someone, then turned back to look, his gaze landing on a frightened Mori standing there. Ryder stared down at him with his multiple eyes, wondering what this was now, while an enraged Mori glared back at him. Ryder called out to Annie, and a small AI emerged from his back, scanned Mori, and informed Ryder that he was a human infant. Suddenly, Ryder smiled. Little One, he called him, making Mori even more confused. He assured Mori not to worry now that he was there, and introduced him to his friend Annie, whom he had created. Confidently, he told Mori that this Ryder would take him home, making the naive boy believe him. Ordering Mori to follow, Ryder smiled while contemplating his next move. He mused that eating humans wasn't illegal, but socially, it was considered taboo. He assumed this one wasn't worth eating anyway. Tender, perhaps, but with too little meat. They'd barely get $300 for it. Still, it wasn't bad money. He wondered if they should sell it alive to the caves, as some eccentric folks might want as a toy. Then he noted that, despite its scruffiness, its clothes looked surprisingly fine and considered putting it up for auction. Just then, Ryder's eyes fell on the symbol engraved on the backside of Mori's cloak. Calling him Little One, he asked him to wait while he checked something. But the moment he saw the symbol, he froze in shock. A moment later, he burst into laughter and muttered that it was already too late. Turning back to Mori, he apologized, saying he had just been too occupied. Then, hopping onto his bike, he remarked that Mori could find his way back on his own and sped away. Looking back, he saw no one there. Thinking about that symbol, he realized he had nearly ruined his life just now. Annie called it chickening out, and the furious Ryder snapped at her to shut up. When he complained that it had left his throat dry, someone handed him a water bottle. He thanked them absent-mindedly, but just as he was about to drink, he suddenly stopped. A realization dawned on him, leaving him completely bewildered. Looking down, he saw that the person handing him the bottle was none other than Mori. Ryder started yelling at him and tried to force him off the bike, but just then, a small rock rolled into their path, almost as if introducing itself, and they were sent flying. Some time later, as Ryder regained consciousness, he clutched his head in pain. He noticed something wrapped around his body and picked it up, realizing they were letters. Suddenly, Mori appeared before him, his eyes wide open, terrifying Ryder to the point of death. Annie exclaimed that he was finally awake and explained that they were worried his body temperature might drop. So the person beside him had covered him with some items and started a fire. Ryder, still shaken, expressed his gratitude to both of them. Annie said he needed some rehydration, and Ryder, still dazed, decided to drink some water. Mori hastily rushed off and returned with a water bottle, but a smiling rock got in his way, causing him to spill the entire contents onto Ryder's face. Ryder ended up completely drenched. Realizing his blunder, Mori quickly searched through his small bag for something. Meanwhile, Ryder watched him closely as he peacefully sorted through his belongings. That's when he noticed a symbol, and suddenly all his doubts became clear. It was a patch, one of the 7 fingers of the beginning and end of the universe. Only the owner of the patch and those they personally permitted could bear this symbol. To carelessly threaten others with it was like hastening one's own death. Ryder grew uneasy and instinctively checked his throat. However, he reasoned that a human who seemed somewhat deficient yet had a symbol engraved on most of their belongings, along with costly paper worth a month's food budget and letters filled with affection, this could only mean one thing. If they safely delivered this child, they could surely claim a reward. Annie mentioned that her battery was running low. Ryder advised Mori to get some rest. As his bike started to dematerialize, he surveyed the desert, memorizing the path to the city. While walking, a lizard observed them, and Ryder remarked that someone like him, a lifesaver, was rare to find in this world. Sometime later, the lizard finds its partner, while the Ryder boasts that he is the only one who truly knows the area. Meanwhile, the lizard's family mourns its passing, yet Mori and the Ryder are still wandering through the desert. The Ryder speaks to Mori, but soon notices that he is preoccupied with something in the distance. Frustrated, he calls out, demanding to know how Mori dares not to pay attention while he is talking. However, Mori is in the middle of eating a strange insect. The Ryder, struck speechless by shock, hurriedly tries to make Mori spit it out. When he finally succeeds, he exhales in relief. Just as he is about to scold Mori again, the boy looks away. The Ryder firmly grabs his face and turns it toward him, explaining, if the legs of a bluish tint like this, they might be poisonous. If the roots are swollen and round or turn blue when threatened, they are definitely poisonous. The Ryder asks if he understands, and Mori nods. Thinking there should not be any more trouble now, the Ryder turns away, only to be startled by the sight of Mori removing a tube from his bike. His frustration boils over as he yells at Mori again, this time for touching a dangerous cactus-like plant. Later, Mori ends up stuck in a swamp. After washing him up, the Ryder scolds him once more. Eventually, he collapses onto the ground, completely drained, reflecting on his life choices. Lying there, he glances at Mori, who is drawing something. Slowly, the Ryder crawls toward him to see what he is working on. Mori mumbles something and holds up his drawing, but the Ryder does not understand what he is saying. However, he notices a box with Mori written on it and wonders if that is his name. He points at a drawn figure wearing a black jacket and asks what the black thing is. Mori points at his own face. The Ryder is shocked. He tries to confirm again, taking a closer look at the drawing. He stares at it for a long time. It is the first time anyone has ever drawn him. Annie teases him, saying he seems to be in a good mood. The flustered Ryder fiercely denies it. Glancing at the drawing, Annie assumes that the flat, round figure must be her and remarks, while the observation skills are decent, the descriptive ability is lacking. I'd give it 50 points. The Ryder grins and suggests that Mori should draw in a more impressive way. And just like that, the night passes. The next morning, as the sun rises, the Ryder stands on a cliff, checking their location. He estimates that once they cross the next hill, they will reach their destination. However, his irritation flares when he sees Mori suddenly run off without listening. He warns that if Mori does not hurry up, he will leave him behind. However, he suddenly grows confused upon spotting an unfamiliar creature and wonders if it is a wild beast. Just then, the ground trembles, and another of its kind emerges to protect the smaller creature. It places a blazing palm on Mori's shoulder, intense flames radiating across its body, deepening the rider's concern. The rider immediately aims his gun at the creature, shouting at it as he fires a shot. The larger one swiftly moves to shield the smaller one, while the rider rushes toward Mori. When he finally reaches him, despair overtakes him at the sight of the flickering flames. Fear grips him. Mori will be reduced to ashes, leaving no trace behind. But at that moment, Mori's cloak billows, and before the rider and Annie's stunned eyes, it extinguishes the flames one by one, like an enchanted veil. Beneath the cloak lies a black void, and as the fire disappears, Mori collapses. They stand there in shock, horrified by its power. Worried, the rider kneels beside Mori, carefully checking him over, only to nearly stumble in shock. Angrily, he glances back, points his gun at the creature, and starts shouting. The creature moves to protect the smaller one, and argues back, but the rider cannot understand him. Frustrated, he demands to know if the creature is just pretending to be the victim. The creature grows nervous when the rider asks if its child is the only one here, and yells that Mori nearly became barbecue. As they argue, something silently approaches them. The ground begins to tremble again, and Annie urgently warns the rider that something is coming from below. Suddenly, a massive earthworm-like alien emerges, towering over the rider and Mori as it circles them. The rider realizes it is an adult. His first thought is that he must send Mori back. Annie warns him that the creature is closing in, but then, to the rider's surprise, the large creature gently bonks the smaller one that had been arguing with him. Then, both creatures bow their heads in apology. The rider is utterly baffled by this. He shouts that he will not let them off so easily. Then, to his further confusion, the small creature moves closer to Mori and offers him a shiny stone, mesmerizing him. Mori eagerly rummages through his bag and pulls out a feather in exchange. The small creature's eyes light up, and it appears overjoyed. They begin playfully circling around the bewildered rider. After that, the creatures depart on the back of the large one, and the small yellow creature happily looks back at Mori. Ryder, too, glances at Mori, who is tightly clutching his cloak. He tells Mori that he survived because of it. He explains that it is a magical item with excellent protection, and likely has temperature-regulating abilities as well. Ryder tells him to be grateful to whoever gave it to him. Joyfully, Mori begins circling around him again. After nightfall, they both sleep on the ground near a fire. As Ryder stares at the flames, his thoughts drift back to that moment with Mori. He calls out to Annie and orders her to display data on humans. A digital screen flickers to life before his eyes, and Annie informs him that this is all the information they have. Ryder frowns. The child must have a mother. Annie looks confused. Ryder sighs and explains that, unlike them, humans reproduce differently. Long ago, when the masters of Earth briefly left for space and then returned, numerous new life forms had emerged in their absence. Among them was a creature driven by immense greed and violent aggression, humans. They convinced themselves that everything, from a single blade of grass beneath their feet to other humans, belonged to them. Over time, their population gradually dwindled and eventually disappeared. Seeing how things turned out, Ryder assumes that the powerful ones did not care much about their offspring. He glances at Mori, who is peacefully asleep. Moving closer, he examines Mori's tiny hands. Mori unconsciously grasps his thumb while resting near Ryder and smiles adorably, captivating with his charm. When Ryder playfully pokes Mori's cheek, Mori shifts away, making the moment even more delightful for him. Elsewhere, someone remarks that the forest surrounding the shelter is completely biodetected, adding that they could not have missed it and speculating that it is probably because of the cloak. An alien with 4 eyes responds that he will find it without fail. Meanwhile, Ryder continues playing with Mori, completely unaware of what is happening. The next day, Mori is still asleep when he slowly opens his eyes and finds himself in a vibrant meadow. He gets to his feet and looks around, his eyes widening in awe at its breathtaking beauty. But then he blinks and slowly opens his eyes again. It was all a dream. In reality, he is traveling with Ryder on his bike. Ryder tells Mori to take a look and points out the stunning view of the city. In the heart of the bustling market, Mori gazes up, noticing the unusual architecture and unfamiliar people wandering about. Suddenly, a loud scream echoes through the air, making them both alert. They spot some aliens mesmerized by Mori's cuteness. The aliens surround him, showering him with praises, which only makes Mori more nervous. Ryder quickly pulls Mori away and yells, demanding if they have any idea how much it cost. He then declares that if they want to see him, they must pay. Successfully driving them away, Ryder lets out a sigh, realizing Mori draws even more attention than he expected. As he steps into an area filled with peculiar aliens, his frustration grows when some of them take an interest in Mori. They ask if he is the child's owner and whether they may touch him. An alien with yellow hair and two horns approaches, demanding to know what is going on. Ryder addresses him as Valentine. Curious about Ryder's intentions, Valentine asks when he decided to raise a human. Ryder firmly responds that Mori is not food and warns him against getting any strange ideas. Amused, Valentine laughs and remarks that no one eats humans these days, calling it barbaric. Ryder then presents one of Mori's letters and asks if he has seen the symbol before. Valentine is taken aback and asserts that the symbol serves as his payment. He recalls encountering it once during a trade negotiation, most likely in the city. A nervous Ryder asks if this is their home, and Valentine confirms it. He gestures toward Mori's black hair, knowing that the man he bargained with had black hair as well. Ryder questions why they would come here, to which Valentine cryptically responds that there is a reason for it. Ryder then tries to purchase some parts for his bike, leading to a heated bargaining session where they shout back and forth. Meanwhile, Mori and Annie play together. In the end, Valentine offers a price of 42 and firmly states that he cannot go any lower. Ryder dumps all his belongings on the ground, and Annie suggests selling a battery with 70% charge remaining. However, Ryder insists that it would be a waste to do so. Annie suggests selling Mori's letters, but Ryder scoffs, asking if she expects him to starve to death. He then notices a yellow stone given to him by that creature and shows it to Valentine, asking how much it would sell for, making Mori anxious. Valentine recognizes it as a Thomas stone and suddenly smashes it into pieces on the table. Furious, Mori tries to attack him, but Ryder holds him back. Valentine tells them to take a closer look. As the shattered stone begins to tremble, they both stare in shock as it restores itself. Valentine explains that because it absorbs light, it glows at night. Ryder asks if it is valuable, but Valentine replies that it has become so common lately that it is practically worthless. As Ryder drops the stone, Mori tries to catch it, but it rolls away. He follows it, weaving through a crowd of aliens. Just as he reaches for the stone, a strange black hand grabs at the same time. Confused, Mori looks up and spots a sinister-looking alien with 4 hands. The alien eerily mutters, "Very cute," and moves toward Mori, prompting him to run. Suddenly, the alien grabs Mori by the collar and stuffs him into a strange space beneath his clothes. As Mori tumbles inside, the alien briefly checks on him before sealing the entrance and scanning his surroundings to avoid suspicion. Meanwhile, trapped in the darkness, Mori desperately bangs against the enclosure, making noise and calling for help. While Ryder is chatting with Valentine, he begins to worry and looks around for Mori. Suddenly, he notices something unusual. An alien tries to slip away quietly as if avoiding attention. Just before leaving, the alien glances back at Ryder with a nervous look in his eyes, deepening Ryder's suspicion. Ryder chases after him and tries to stop him, but the alien slips into Main Street, blending in with the crowd. Ryder keeps pursuing him while instructing Annie to scan the area. Just as Ryder reaches out to grab him, the alien leaps off the bridge. Ryder looks down and sees the alien landing on another bridge below. The alien glances back at Ryder, who angrily shouts at him as Annie reports that a life form with a temperature of 36.8 degrees Celsius has been detected in the alien's pocket. Ryder tells Annie he needs to get ahead and cut them off. He sprints in the same direction as the alien, while Annie follows from the other side, scanning the town and generating a virtual map. Analyzing the data on her digital screens, Annie calculates 14 possible routes based on the alien's speed and direction. She determines that Route 2 is the most likely path and begins guiding Ryder, who quickly ascends the stairs ahead. Meanwhile, the alien searches for a hiding spot as Ryder pushes himself to run at full speed. Annie directs him toward the bridge on the left just as the alien makes a U-turn. A female alien proudly showcases her masterpiece to a group of kids when Ryder suddenly dashes past, completely wrecking it. She struggles to hold back tears as he keeps running. As the alien tries to escape, Annie approaches from the opposite direction. She instructs Ryder, who is plowing through everything in his path, to switch to Route 11. Meanwhile, Mori, trapped inside the alien's bag, struggles against a violent shaking, completely terrified. Annie alerts Ryder that they are nearing the predicted destination. The path ahead is blocked by yellow tape. Pushing through it, he finds himself at a dead end and anxiously asks Annie if she's serious. Annie quickly checks her map and urges Ryder to act immediately. He jumps down from the ledge, his white hair-like tail striking the rocks and sending a sharp pain through him. As the alien spots Ryder falling, he makes another U-turn, only to be caught off guard when Annie suddenly appears above him in her bike form, blocking his escape. Now he is trapped between Annie and Ryder. Weakly, he asks Ryder who he is and why he's chasing him so aggressively. Ryder shouts for Mori, urging him to respond if he can hear him. Faint noises emerge from the alien's clothes. Annie scans the sound and confirms with 98% certainty that it's Mori. Furious, Ryder demands that the alien return as human. The bewildered alien asks what he's talking about. Ryder warns him not to play dumb, insisting that he has a tiny human in his pocket. The alien denies knowing anything but then brazenly lies, claiming he'd been raising Mori all along. He demands to know why Ryder is trying to take something he raised himself. Annie informs Ryder that Mori's fear level is rising, making him even angrier. Pointing his gun at the alien, Ryder shouts for him to stop talking nonsense and hand Mori over immediately. The alien flatly refuses, saying Mori is too cute and that he has decided to raise him.